Felicia Smith, and I am the chairperson of the advisory board of the Salvation Army here in Fort Smith. And I would like to welcome each and every one of you all for joining us today with our virtual Red Kettle ringing of the bells. Thank you all again. You just don't know how you will obviously be helping to so many community members in Fort Smith who are not able or just can't, have funds or meals or a bed to sleep in at night. We have these situations, and the Salvation Army has helped tremendously with helping persons to be fed, to have beds at night, to be able to sleep comfortably, to have heat and electricity, and also to have fans during the summer times. And then most of all, with why I'm here right now is to present to you about Christmas. Christmas, as you know, when you see the red bell, it signifies that we are trying to provide funds and things for families during Christmas. So, with that said, we need your donations. We need you to help us to keep these families fed, to keep them clothed, to keep them warm, to keep them cool. And so if you would just please do this and make your contribution to us, that would be wonderful. And so again, with you being here with us, I would like to inform you that we have served over 5,000 people in Fort Smith. We have provided 13,000 hot meals. 200 people have slept in the emergency shelter. And it's all possible because of you. And we thank you for giving. And so we need to have you during this time, especially during the pandemic of the COVID-19, to give your donations and to help us to keep those numbers high and to exceed what we already done. So in closing, I want to share with you a story about the Salvation Army. A Methodist minister named William Booth. But in 1910, 40 years after he had started the Salvation Army, he became ill and near death. And he was unable to attend the Salvation Army convention. And so this was in London, and he wanted to send a message to the organization that he founded, that he authored, and he said one word: others. That one word was a strong word that had an impact on the Fort Smith Salvation Army. We are here to serve others, and we would like for you to help us to serve others. So thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you in this afternoon. Thank you for just being a breath of fresh air to the Salvation Army, and then just knowing in your heart that you have served the undeserved. Thank you.
My first experience ever with the Salvation Army would be back home. All I knew that Salvation Army was a thrift store. And we came to Fort Smith 6.5 years ago and actually started receiving services. When we first came to Fort Smith, we were homeless and we actually checked into the shelter. My children are actually very nostalgic about the time we were at the shelter. Just because everybody is so giving toward the children, so that is a positive thing for me of our experience. We were at the shelter probably about 3 months, and then I was given an opportunity to work at the thrift store, and that's where I actually started my employment with the Salvation Army. I was a cashier at the thrift store for 2 years, and then the director of social work here and social services asked that I be transferred over because there was some staff changing. So that's how I came to be caseworker. I guess in my position now as caseworker, having been through homelessness and having to get reestablished, I have a lot of empathy for the clients that come in because I know where they've been. Day to day, I run the food pantry. We give out food Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. We prepare for 30 households to receive food. I administer the utility assistance funds, and I also am the case manager for our families that were housed through a housing grant. My favorite part, I think what touches my heart the most, is seeing the relief on someone's face where they don't have to choose between paying a bill or getting food. When someone comes in, for example, utility assistance, they may be having to look at, hey, I'm not going to pay my electricity this week because I've got to still make rent. It's rewarding because you see them take a breath and, okay, I'm not going to worry about losing my house this week because, I was able to get food and my electric paid. There's a lot of, the warm, fuzzy feelings.
This year, not unlike other agencies serving the community, we need your help to rescue Christmas. Hundreds of households every year depend on the Salvation Army to fill their pantries, their freezers, to put gifts under their tree for their children, keep their lights on, provide a hot meal for the hungry, and if necessary, provide a safe place for them to sleep at night. This year, the need is much greater. Layoffs have increased. Employers have scaled back by restructuring or reducing hours. Parents are having to school their children from home, and for families who are already struggling to feed their children, this is really tough. Food insecurity is very real. The circumstances of this year have affected our two main food drives that typically give us enough food to share for the entire year. The changes in our way of living will affect our Red Kettle campaign because shoppers just aren't shopping like they did, and certainly not during a busy season like Christmas. Less people are carrying cash, coins are scarce, so you see why we need your help to rescue Christmas. We need your help so the Salvation Army in Fort Smith can continue helping families in this community feed their children, fill their pantries, keep their lights on, and so much more. Thank you.
Hello, I am Shirley McCutcheon from the Salvation Army of Fort Smith's Advisory Board. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your support and generosity. As you know, this year will be a very challenging time for our nonprofits. As we enter the holiday season, will you consider supporting us by donating today at our virtual Red Kettle Ball? We've even made it more convenient for you by partnering with McCutcheon, Sexton, Naparano, the law firm, to collect your donations. For your convenience, you can drop off your gift to the Salvation Army of Fort Smith at McCutcheon, Sexton, Naparano, the law firm, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow, November the 6th. Simply drop your donation off for the Salvation Army at our drive-thru at 1622 North B Street in Fort Smith. If you have any questions about the drive and drop, please call Shirley McCutcheon at 870-416-8566.
God is predictable in his unpredictability. There's a pattern seen throughout Scripture and highlighted at Christmas. God delights in surprising us, in revealing the ways in which he is not like us. One of the most common deceptions of humanity is to believe that God acts, thinks, and believes exactly like us. Rarely does God do what we expect. We read in the Bible in part to see what is wrong with us and what is right with Jesus. We read to understand who God is. If humanity should be certain of anything, it is that we never know what God might do next. The Christmas story confirms one pattern of God. He shows up in unexpected places. It began in the garden after Adam and Eve sinned. What kind of God shows up to rebellious humanity? It continues through the choosing of Israel and God's faithfulness despite their disobedience. Throughout the biblical record, God shows up in unexpected places. The Christmas story is one of the best examples. In an unexpected place, through an unexpected woman, at the most unexpected time, God shows up the most unexpected way as a little baby. This is the pattern of God. God shows up in unexpected places from A to Z. Abraham in old age, Balaam in a donkey, Caleb in a windless war, Daniel in a lion's den, Eve through the pains of childbearing, Felix in truth spoken by a common criminal, Gideon in a woolen fleece, Hosea in an unfaithful wife, Isaiah in the death of his king, Jacob in a wrestling match, King David in the death of a child, Lazarus in his own death, Moses in a shrub, for Noah in an ark, for Onesimus in a letter, Peter on the shore, Queen Esther in a kidnapping, Ruth in a foreign land, for Samuel in the middle of the night, for Timothy in the midst of his youth, for King Uzziah in a disease, for Vashti in a demotion, for the widow in 2 little mites, for Xerxes in a second marriage, for Joshua in a ragtag army, and for Zacchaeus in a tree. From A to Z, God shows up in unexpected places. When choosing a people, he came to the smallest. When choosing a king, he came to the youngest. When choosing disciples, he came to the least qualified. When choosing a gospel spreader, he came to the gospel hater. Israel expected blessing through birth order, but God chose the second son. They expected God would protect the strong, but his law protected the widows and the fatherless and the alien. They expected the Messiah would come from the religious elite, but he came from a young woman. They expected the Messiah in Jerusalem, but he was born in Bethlehem. They expected he would come in glory, but he came in infancy. They expected he would take up the crown, but he took up a cross. They expected he would praise the Pharisees and chastise the sinners, but he chastised the Pharisees and loved the sinners. They expected he would ignore the poor, but he promised them something far more. They expected he would honor their traditions, but he hated their positions. They expected he would take up a sword, but he took up a cross. God shows up in unexpected places. It's the pattern of God to shock and surprise in the place that we least expect. Imagine the potential that idea brings to this day. It means God can use your greatest heartache. He can work through your greatest trial. He can reveal himself through your greatest pain. It means when things don't go right, we should have more expectation of God revealing himself rather than less. It means when we can embrace the sorrows of this life because God most often uses them to change us. It means there should never be a moment in which we think God is not at work. He is always at work, always revealing himself, always doing more than we can ever imagine. God shows up in unexpected places. This pattern of God is our hope this Christmas season. The assumption is that in a time of global pandemic, we will lack the normal resources to meet the many needs that are present. With limited red kettles and fewer people shopping in person, it's expected that the Salvation Army will have a tough year. The thought from some is, there's always next year. And it's easy to tell an organization that. There's always next year works for baseball teams and companies. But the Salvation Army doesn't have the luxury of waiting until next year. This year, the needs are real. This year, the needs are even greater than a normal year. A child can't wait till next year. A working mom can't wait till next year. A struggling family can't wait till next year. This year, memories will be made. This year, Christmas will be experienced. This year, bellies will be hungry and a dinner table will either be empty or full. We expect this to be a tough year. But isn't it the pattern of God to show up in unexpected places? What is more unexpected for some than having a meaningful Christmas during the time of global instability? That's the hope of this season. In the midst of the uncertainty and confusion, God will show up and show out. And we get to have a front row seat for what God will do. We actually have an opportunity to join God in his work and to help others experience his kindness. As we generously give, God can use our humble acts of generosity to communicate a loud message of love and concern for people you and I may never meet. God shows up in unexpected places. He will show up even now.
Hello, my name is Meredith Ray, and I serve on the advisory board of the Salvation Army of Fort Smith. Thank you for joining us for our first ever virtual event. Whether you are watching because you are a longtime supporter, someone who wants to learn more about the Salvation Army, or just because a friend or colleague asked you to join in, we are grateful for you taking the time out of your schedule to celebrate what our community has accomplished through this organization, the Salvation Army of Fort Smith. For many, including myself, I know when I hear the bells of the Salvation Army ring out at stores across Fort Smith that the holiday season is officially underway. For many of us, those bells signify the return of Christmas and joy we feel as we drop our loose change into the iconic red kettle. Those bells, however, mean so much more to many others in our community. That bell is a hot meal. That bell is the next rent payment that will stave off eviction. That bell is a hot meal. That bell is the next rent payment that will stave off eviction. That bell means someone's family in our community will have heat and electricity this winter. That bell is presents under the Christmas tree for a struggling family, or a night off of the streets, or a shoulder to lean on, or a heart to hear. Since January, the Salvation Army has served over 5,000 people in Fort Smith. Over 4,500 of them received a week's worth of food in a food pantry box. We served over 13,000 hot meals in our Red Shield Diner to local residents in need of a cooked meal, and nearly 200 people slept in our emergency shelter. This is 100% possible because of the love and support you and others like you in the River Valley give to the Salvation Army every year. We couldn't accomplish this without you. This year may be different for us as we face the mounting COVID-19 crisis and its growing economic impact on our communities, as we see more need in our community and are called on to help more people. That's why we are asking you today to help contribute above and beyond to the Salvation Army. Will you join with us and send a donation card if you receive one, or donate online at the address on your screen or the links provided? These special gifts will go toward helping those with the greatest need in Fort Smith and the River Valley. Additionally, if you have been moved by our event today, please consider volunteering to ring a bell or work with our Angel Tree program this holiday season. For more info on that or to donate, visit our website. Thank you from us at the Salvation Army and from the thousands of community members that we will serve this coming year with your help.